What if I told you that a cartoon ape JPEG once sold for more than most people's house, and that the technology behind it actually ended up controlling the deed of your real house one day? Yeah, you heard that right. Cartoon apes and house deeds in the same sentence. And by the end of this episode, it's going to totally make sense to you. Let's get into it. Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm Mr. Arroyo. This is Blocks and Beyond, the podcast where we break down crypto and Web3 in plain English, no PhD required. If you're new to crypto or you're trying to learn without breaking your brain, this podcast is for you. So today we're talking about NFTs. The reason I say it like that is because a lot of people give this thing a bad name. And what they actually are, okay? So the wild story of how the Bored Ape Yacht Club, I'm pretty sure you heard about this, took over pop culture. And why NFTs might end up running way deeper than art pictures. I'm talking about into something real, like real estate titles, deeds, ownership to a car, fractional ownership of real estate. So what actually is an NFT? It's unique, verifiable. It's ownership recorded on a blockchain. Okay? In plain English, NFT stands for Non-Fungible Token. Fungible meaning interchangeable, right? So let's say if you have a dollar bill, it's the same as any other dollar bill. $5 bills equals a $5 bill. That's fungible. Non-fungible means one of a kind. There's only one of it. And the blockchain keeps it a permanent public record and tells you exactly who owns it. So the image people usually associate it with when you think about an NFT isn't actually what's stored on the blockchain itself. The blockchain stores the proof of ownership and a pointer, okay, hear me, to where that image and asset live. Ready? So an NFT is like the title of a car. The certificate isn't the car, right? You get that. It's the legal proof of who owns the car. You can copy a picture of it 1,000 times, but you still don't own the car. The same way with a Bored Ape. You can screenshot, you can right click and save, but you still don't own the actual one. There's only one blockchain record that shows exactly who owns the original. I want you to think about, you know how many people have a picture of the Mona Lisa? Yeah, think about that. So anybody can click on these photos of these monkeys or the cats or the penguins or whatever NFT you think about. Anyone can click on these. And this is the part where people get stuck on constantly. So let's have some fun real quick, right? Somebody always says, I could just screenshot the NFT, so they're worthless. And screenshot away, like nobody's stopping you. But screenshotting a picture doesn't mean you open or own that NFT. The value is not found in the picture. It's not about the picture. It's about the verified, provable ownership sitting underneath it. You guys get that? So let's talk about BAYC, Bored Ape Yacht Club, okay? Let's talk about how a collection of cartoon apes became cultural and a financial phenomenon. Okay. The Bored Ape Yacht Club, they launched in 2021, I believe, mid 2021, around there. And it was from a small studio that would become Yuga Labs. Okay. You probably heard of them. It was a collection of 10,000 randomly generated ape images, some with hats, different combinations of traits, fur types, expressions, hats, outfits, some more rare than the other. And what made it different from a typical art drop was the owning an ape came bundled with commercial rights to that specific image, access to member-only communities, yacht parties, and eventually real-world perks like merchandise deals. That's what was behind that picture. So think of it like buying a country club membership that also doubles as an art piece, a fan club, a small business license, because you actually got the rights to build a brand around that specific ape image you had. That's wild. That was so ahead of its time at that point. And owners, they weren't just collectors of art. Some launched their own businesses using their ape because they had commercial rights. Celebrities, Justin Bieber, Snoop Dogg, major brands, they jumped in on this. And this pushed the floor price, which is the value of the NFT. It pushed it. The cheapest ape available, I think it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this was obviously at the peak of NFTs, the peak of this collection. We'll get into that later where we're at now. But here's the wild part of this story. This wasn't some big corporation with marketing budgets the size of a country. It was a handful of people who understood something most projects at the time completely missed. Community and utility matter more than the art itself. People weren't just buying a picture. They were buying a membership card into an exclusive club. And when the market cooled later on, okay, because we all know markets go like roller coasters up and down. When the market cooled later, it became a pretty clear lesson in the difference between a project built on real utility versus projects built purely on hype. So now, let's talk about the future of NFTs beyond art. Let's talk about real estate titles, deeds, fractional ownership. Because I feel personally that during that time in the pandemic, where people were scooping NFTs of everything, like music, I got a Wu-Tang album as an NFT. I got a Ferrari commercial as an NFT. I got a Coinbase commercial as an NFT because I understood the technology behind it. And I wasn't just buying a picture. I wasn't buying a video clip. I was buying the asset and the utility behind it. So I want you to strip away the thought of the ape picture. And an NFT is just a flexible tool for proving unique ownership of anything. Literally anything. The same tool is being tested for real estate property titles, where a blockchain could instantly prove who legally owns the property. This cuts down the slow paperwork and, reduces, I can't even, like, the way it would solve fraud is beyond me. It's also being explored for fractional ownership. So fractional ownership would be splitting an expensive asset. Let's say you want to buy a rare Ferrari F50, right? You don't probably have the money on your own, but you and 100 friends can fractionalize it. A piece of real estate, you and your friends can fractionalize it, right? This is splitting the expenses between a group of people. Like building, let's say the Mona Lisa or a building or a car. Think of anything that you would consider an asset and splitting it into thousands of smaller NFT shares, almost like a company does in stock. Making it so that regular people can own a slice of something that would normally be out of reach. Leveling out the playing field when it comes to investing. I want you to picture a deed of a house sitting in a filing cabinet, right? At the county office. Only accessible during business hours. Vulnerable, let's say, if it gets lost or there's a fire in the building or flood. These things happen. Now picture that same deed as a digital asset, permanent, tamper-proof, and recorded so that anyone can verify at any time from anywhere. And you want to talk about fractional ownership? Picture a whole apartment building being cut into thousands of digital shares in your pocket. So instead of needing millions of dollars to invest in real estate, you could own a small piece for a couple of $100 and have it everywhere you go. That's the part of digital that we need to think about. It's always on you. It's always available. So in the real world, obviously, there's several pilot programs that are trying these things, right? One of them is Proppy. You can buy a house on Proppy right now with cryptocurrency. So it's not something that's going to happen. It's happening now, slowly but surely. And it gets verified on the blockchain. The ownership is on the blockchain. And this is why I want you to stop thinking of NFTs as just a picture. The ape era was really just the proof of concept. It was a flashy, chaotic, very public experience that proved people would trust and value blockchain-based ownership. Real estate, concert tickets, event access, even physical collectibles like Pokemon cards, they're on the blockchain now. All of that is quietly getting built in the exact same foundation right now. So, yes, in the early days, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, it almost didn't take off. The founding team, they struggled to sell through the full 10,000 collection at launch. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a boom once they released it. It was a combination of an active community talking about it, giveaways, a wave of high-profile public buys that snowballed into a niche art drop as one of the most recognizable brands in cryptocurrency, and eventually leading to major license deals, a token launch, and even virtual land sales tied to the brand. We'll get into that another time. Don't get me started on virtual land. But what gets me about this story is how close it came to almost being a forgotten project. And there's a lesson in that. For anybody building anything, sometimes the difference between something disappearing into the void and something becoming a cultural phenomenon, it isn't the project itself, it's the community that you build around it. That was good. That was good, guys. You got to admit. All right. So you know what time it is now. Let's get the audience involved. Okay. So we're jumping on our Instagram. Let's check it out. Okay. We got one here. Have you ever wondered why some JPEGs sell? I'm guessing they mean NFTs. Why some NFTs sell for a few dollars and others sell for hundreds of thousands. So I think it's it's kind of on a sense of some people do know the utility behind it, but you also have to understand that everything means something to somebody. So let's say you have a Pokemon card of a Pikachu. To someone who they're just a collector or a scalper right now, that card might be, oh, yeah, I'll pay you $50. I'll give you $100 for that card. And then they turn it off for a quick sell. Somebody else might want to be like, I will give you $10,000 for that card raw, because I had that card when I was 5 and my grandfather passed away and gave it to me. And so it's going to have a different value to somebody. And in this sense, the same thing goes with certain NFTs, whether it's a project, whether it's just artwork, whether it's music. Like I said, I have the Wu-Tang album that I was willing to go, $40 on because I like their music. So it meant something to me. I have a commercial from Ferrari that I might have paid $3 on Coinbase, but somebody else might be willing to pay $1,200 because they're a super fan of Ferrari. So the value is almost in emotion, but also in utility. So you have to think about both. Both of them come into play. All right? Hope that answers it. Now let's look at one more. What would you think if 10 years from now, your house lived on the blockchain instead of in the city? Let me see what would you think if 10 years from now, your house title lived on the blockchain instead of in the city? Okay. So it's possible. I think we're going into, not necessarily like that we haven't been for a while already, but that we're going deeper into a digital space, with AI, trading is digital. Just schooling, like everything's done on a computer. Pokemon cards can be stored in a crypto wallet. So a lot of this stuff is already transitioning to digital space. And it's just going to get easier. Our phone, nobody really carries cash anymore. I went to Famous Footwear and they were like, the penny is going out of circulation. Like, blew me away. I'm like, am I getting that much older that I'm never going to see the penny again? So we're going into a digital space where, and I don't think it's going to be 10 years. I think it's going to be way faster than that, just because how the speed that things are moving, right? So I hope those two questions were answered. We'll grab another one on the next episode. All right. So now for everybody's favorite section of the pod. Okay. It kind of hurt me because some people said they get a lot more detail from this section. And I get it because people want the quick and just get it over with. But the entire episode goes together with this. Okay. Just so you guys know that. So the myth, NFTs are just overpriced photos that anyone can take for free. So they're pointless. Okay. And the reality is the image is just the visible wrapper. Okay. It's like, if you think about, I'm going to time myself right now. If you think about like a vinyl record or a CD, the CD is the visual representation of the music inside of it, or burnt onto it, I guess you could say. The same thing with the record. The record is the visual representation of the music. And that's what the picture is on the NFTs. What you're actually buying is a verified tamper-proof record. Depending on the project, sometimes commercial rights come with that, community access, real-world utilities. There's a bunch of stuff that are tied to it. You have to look into it, though. You can't just say, oh, somebody said. You have to look into these things. And the same underlying technology for these pictures of NFTs are being tested in real world value. Okay. So if you, let's say if you think about a building or, we kind of got into it. So I really don't want to like pull this apart again. But pretty much anything, whether digital, and I think it started in digital, but now we're going into both worlds, real world and digital, So you can own a skyscraper with a bunch of your friends and own that same skyscraper in digital world as a virtual land, right? So I think I'm going to have to say this one is an asset and I wouldn't trash it. But I get why most people would say trash it because the market did get flooded for a long time with low effort, sometimes AI projects that would just, the pictures were so horrible because this was a time when AI was still new. So not every NFT deserves a pass. But writing off the entire technology because someone decided that they were going to try to make a quick buck is like writing off the internet because you got a pop-up ad in 1999, right? That's how it looks. So you have to take each project, each NFT for what it is and research it. So yeah, that's I'm going to say an asset. And as NFT technology matures past digital into real world assets like properties and ownership, fractional ownership, we have to understand how this stuff works. You just don't want to put money into things. You have to be ahead of the curve on what's coming. Okay? So with that being said, we're going to wrap this up. So as we wrap this episode up, I need you to take this with you. Okay? This is the biggest takeaway of this entire episode. An NFT isn't the picture. It's the verified proof of ownership underneath it. And the same idea is already being tested in many different ways other than a cartoon ape. I'm talking about real estate. I'm talking about investing. I'm talking about stocks. I'm talking about Pokemon cards. You name it. So the next time somebody tells you that NFTs are dead or that they were always just a joke, you know the real story. A rocky start, a community that turned into a phenomenon, and a technology that already quietly shows up on various platforms. The apes might fade out. The ownership tech underneath them isn't going anywhere. Okay? So that's another episode of Blocks and Beyond. I hope you had a good time. I will see you next week. Later.